All right, so Mike Nichols, Senior Product Designer for Source Code, here with Torsten, the PM for Source Code. And today I'm gonna walk through framework for source code rules, kind of give a high-level overview of what it is, what's been done, and what still needs to be done. So it started off, basically we have a number of settings in the product that are kind of placed around in different places in the UI, and many of them are dependent on branches. So I'll give you two examples: protected branches and approval rules. These are both branch dependent, but to manage those, you have to manage those in two different parts of the UI, which forces a user or an organization to, if there are branches that you care about, you got to go here, set the approval rules, you got to go to complete other place in the UI and set protected branches, leading to kind of duplication of efforts and just not really, great user experience, and hard to get a clear view of like what's locked down and what's not locked down. So the thought was, well, maybe we can combine some of these sets of rules together in a way that allow organizations to operate a little bit better. So born out of this was this effort, framework for source code rules. So first, I'll kind of walk through like what has been done. So the first thing we kind of did was not to just limit it to the things that I was talking about, to kind of look at all sorts of stuff. So this table is really like a comparison of, kind of just different attributes of these settings, to try and look and see what, where are the consistencies and where are the overlaps and where are things that maybe wouldn't fit into here. So we looked at approval rules, protected branches, code owners, status checks, scan results for security policies, push rules, and protected branches. Protected tags and push rules don't have a lot of overlap. Most of these other things kind of do. So this is out there. I'm not going to go through it in much more detail than that. But this was kind of the first large effort, was kind of collecting all of this data together in one place. And we also kind of took the approach of not like going solution first. So when I was first introducing, I was talking about, these might be branch-based. We didn't make that assumption up front. We've kind of come to that. So I went through a number of kind of like data finding issues. So I created like knowns and unknowns. And I'm just walking through this just so you might have a sense of like where you might want to go and look at this information. Most of these have been closed at this point, so they're kind of efforts that happened, but there is some information that was gathered in here. So the idea here was just kind of look through things that we know and things that we don't know, and have discussions about them. So this basically was a collection of kind of the things that we know about these types of rules here. Also took a look at like, what is the data set? So similar to that kind of table that I showed earlier, like what are the data attributes that are involved in all these settings, and trying to come up with like what data set can we operate against. And out of that, it came clear that, well, let me actually go into this one here, that the crux of this was like how these should be organized, right? Like what is the best way to organize these? And we started off not assuming that branch would be the first way. So this one was really talking about like different ways that we could organize these rule sets together. Out of this, it was the theory was that by branch is the obvious choice here. But we also did some research on that. So worked with Ben and Pedro, and we put this through a research study, put in front of some users, and basically confirmed that belief that branches as an organizational system is the proper way to move forward with this. So kind of answered the data set, and basically all of this kind of culminated in, all right, we know we're going to move forward with like branch as an organizational system to the rules. I then kind of went through like a long extended like greenfield UI exploration where I went through like every way under the sun that the UI might look. Ultimately, most of this I think maybe is better taken as an exploration, because I'll show you here the MVC in a second. And most of this is kind of irrelevant, but it might be useful for like future iterations to kind of push it into this point. And then there's this one as well. It's related efforts. So this touches a lot of stuff. So felt the need to document, the groups that are affected by this and some of the ongoing efforts that they have. So like compliance, container security, obviously code review, the access group, particularly around RBAC. We did take a look at, there was this ongoing effort from a design pod, role-based security, basically, and kind of looked at like whether it makes sense to combine these efforts. Like, should this be an extension of role-based security? Ultimately, we determined that it was not, but we did integrate with them a little bit, and then release as well. So this is kind of a place where there's some ongoing efforts that might have some impact on this. So they're all kind of documented here. So all of this led up to basically the state that we're in now, where I wanted to define basically an MVC that would be kind of the smallest, even though it's still pretty large, change that we could make. So I can walk you through that. And then I kind of have the things that I think should come after that. So basically for MVC, creating a new branch rules section that allow you to create branches as a top level organization. And then as an MVC, just moving protected branches and merge requests together into one thing. So instead of picking those things independently and applying branches to them, pick a branch and apply those to that, which I think solves the problem of, lets you organize these things. Generally, the branches that you care about for protection reasons are the branches that you care about for approval. So top level branch selection up here, and then put the branch protections here and the merge requests here. And if you're familiar with the current UI, this is basically just a retread of that and take out the few like this has a target, currently this has a target branch and this has a target branch, but since you've chosen it up here, it's that. So it is very much the UI that exists today, just reorganized into kind of this structure. So after the MVC, there was a number of questions that like, what could we do to like kind of another knowns and unknowns, and like where are things that we should go. So this issue, MVC refinement, was just to like start threads, and this is kind of the exact moment that we're kind of at today. Of basically for all of these things, I either created threads or issues that are things that I think could use further discussion. So if it's a smaller thing, I created a thread for it and kind of laid out, my thoughts on it. And for a few of these things, like, like the naming convention, I do think there is, sorry, moving around here a lot. Just trying to get to a good example here. Sorry, these tend to get a little long. So like the name of this thing has kind of gone back and forth. Should it be called branch rules? Should it be called protection, safeguards? It's kind of had, there's some things like that that could probably use a little research. So I've met with Ben, the researcher, and kind of walked him through some of this stuff. So he's aware of it, and if it's the kind of thing that I think that maybe could benefit from research, I've kind of noted it here. So this is kind of the where we're at today and where I think we might need to go, kind of not complete discussions, but like stubbed out threads for future discussions. And then the last thing that I did was create issues for like future improvement kind of stuff. So that's what you'll see is a lot of these other ones here. One thing that I took a stab at, but really could use your input, Torsten, is like how we migrate from this. Do we do it, do we introduce this as a new feature and let both coexist for a while, or do we make the hard swap over? So I kind of took a pass at like what the migration plan could look like. Created a rule for like the approvals section. Since it was a straight copy from the UI today, there might be some room for improvement there. Same with the protected branches section, code owners section. This one is to look like at the list itself. Maybe we could refine that. And then several other things. So the MVC was really just protected branches and approval rules, but there's lots of other features that could potentially move over there. So status checks might be an interesting one to move over there. Merge checks, push rules, merge request options. And so that's what this set here is other features that we might want to move over there in the future post MVC. And then just a few like nice to haves. So from the branches page, I created an issue. It might be nice once this exists, if on the branches page, if you could just launch directly into the editing of the rules there, so you don't have to go to settings and find it. This might be a nice to have. The ability to duplicate it might be a nice to have. And I think that's it. So like I said, we kind of have an MVC laid out, kind of have some discussions stubbed out, and have some future enhancement issues kind of laid out. And that's kind of where we're at today. So let me stop sharing here and I'll stop the recording.